The Dan Yorke State of Mind program is brought to you in part by Lookout Rhode Island and Takeo Comfort Solutions.
Good evening and welcome into my State of Mind. I am Dan Yorke. Small business still trying to claw their way back to some level of normalcy. Some have, some haven't. But when we find out that there are a lot of jobs out there, that small businesses are trying to fill them and can't, you might find that surprising. I know I did. I heard from one local business owner about that in the last couple of days, and we're going to explore that situation coming right up. In the meantime, here's 12 News. Look at some of the challenges small businesses have as recently as a week or two ago.
We've all become pretty reliant on outdoor dining.
The sights and sounds of summer on Federal Hill, a little different this year. Just one of the changes the pandemic has placed on staples like Constantino's.
It's really difficult with the spacing guidelines to get enough people inside.
Outdoor dining, just one of the innovative ways restaurants have adapted to keep food on the table.
The temperature's already started changing.
Rick Simone with the Federal Hill Commerce Association says they felt the difference already.
This past weekend, we had a report that business was down by 27% across the board for restaurants because the temperatures dropped.
Those concerns top of mind for state leaders as well. During her briefing Wednesday, Governor Gina Raimondo expanding eligibility for restaurants looking for grants, extra money to make outdoor dining last longer.
Heating lamps, outdoor furniture, tents, bike racks, Wi-Fi, tables, chairs, lighting.
I think that the money that they've allotted right now will help some places get started. The question is going to be, how long can we make that money last?
Some of the governor's ideas already seen here at Constantino's. Heating lamps lining parts of Di Pasquale Square. Simone says the Hill will need more than 100 more to keep alfresco dining going through the fall, with restaurants forced to innovate yet again.
It's about changing, finding something new.
And so we meet Bill Kitsilis. He is the proprietor of Angelo's Pizzeria restaurant. The formal name, Bill, is what on Mendon Road in Cleveland?
Angelo's Palace Pizza.
Palace Pizza, right. Full disclosure, haven't been there in a little while, but over the years, a semi-regular customer. It's a good spot. We're not here to do a commercial, though, for Bill. He has been a vocal voice in the small business community. I think first, for questions about, what to do about COVID and how to handle his business challenges, because a lot of his were not unique to others. A lot of participation on lieutenant governors, phone calls, and the like. But recently, as I mentioned at the top, Bill sent me a quick message that said, "Hey, you're not going to believe this, but all the way up and down Mendon Road, there's not a restaurant that doesn't have a problem hiring people." I'm thinking, huh? Okay. So we're going to talk about that coming up in a little bit. Let's go backwards first. First of all, Bill, how is business?
Believe it or not, we're doing a brisk business right now. We're doing well. We've adapted. We did what a lot of restaurateurs did. We limited our hours, really cut down our menus so we could streamline things. And the biggest reason a lot of that was driven was because early on, with kind of the sudden and necessary shutdowns, I guess at the time, we laid a lot of people off because we didn't know where we stood. And when the virus first hit, I mean, business was off from almost everyone. If you didn't shut down completely, you were off 70, 80%. It was a really scary time. And then as consumer confidence built up, and I think people stopped going to Walmart or the supermarket to stock up, they started coming back to takeout and delivery. And as you know, because I'm a pizzeria plus, meaning I lost all my dining room, bar business, and function room business, but we always had takeout and delivery. So I was fortunate enough to be in a position where we had online ordering, where I had delivery drivers. We were able to take a lot of our wait staff and transition them to delivery drivers, because all of a sudden the demand for contactless delivery, which we never knew existed, and then all of a sudden we're programming that into our online ordering. We stepped it up. We were lucky we put masks on early. I think that made a difference, at least in just making the staff feel safe to come back to work and our guests to feel safe. And I was lucky enough in Cumberland to have a pickup window. So I was uniquely situated to adapt to the situation, but also recognizing the fact that a lot of other restaurants weren't, and were in that beginning time trying to figure out how to get online ordering, how to transition from just dine-in business to takeout and delivery business, and how to get onto third-party delivery services, which they were so inundated across the country. Even if you wanted them, you couldn't get them for weeks at a time to upload your menu so you could get an online service. So it was a hectic, scary time, and no one knew what was going to happen next. Like if we were going to have a total shutdown, how contagious this virus was, or if it would spread, if masks would help mitigate it. We didn't know, because at first everyone was telling us don't wear masks, and it was just like, you just didn't know. And I think it was that uncertainty that we had to fight through, and we kind of all came together. Restaurant owners, we were on, competitors, so to speak. We were on group text messages. We were working with Island Hospitality. We were working with the Lieutenant Governor's office, and I'm on the executive committee for the Hospitality Association. And we were just kind of trying to navigate what was going on, because we wanted to be safe. We wanted our guests to be safe, and we wanted our staff to be safe. And there was so much uncertainty. We kind of all worked together to figure it out. Whether it worked out for everyone or not, I think it was a case-by-case basis. And there's a lot of people suffering and hurting as a result.
Sure, it makes sense to me. You talk about this, and folks, we'll try to move Bill's audio up a little bit. Zoom is wonderful, don't you think? But we can hear you, Bill. But it's just
okay.
We'll tune it up in our next segment. I think it's, and by the way, we're recording this program on Thursday afternoon. You're seeing it fresh on Monday night for the first time, but due to production schedules and things we have to do, that's the timing, just in case anything doesn't seem to make sense on real time for you. Here's the thing. You just gave me a 3-minute narrative, and you're always articulate, and you can always kind of paint the picture, but you're talking about it in the past. Now, somebody said something to me the other day about what March felt like. It felt like a decade ago to them. Every day, I think, for all of us is become a one day at a time thing. Certainly you're planning and you're looking at 2021 and you're trying to be normal in that sense. But I think everybody's got a feeling that things are very one day at a time, and it's slowed us down a little bit. Tell me, as you refer to those scary and tough and difficult and uncertain times, does it feel like it's in the rear view mirror?
It does. But at the same time, there's a small piece of you that now is willing to expect the unexpected. When the rumors of this virus coming out of China were, I talked to a lot of friends that were doctors or working on infectious disease, and they're like, oh, I think they're going to contain it. We're not that worried about it back in February, March. And I think what we all learned is the impossible can happen, and you just have to be flexible in your business model. The reason why I think it affects us today, and why I talk so much about March, is because, and no one's the fault for this, what happened is things got shut down and people got sent home from work. And then the PPP came along to provide 8 weeks of payroll coverage. But before you even got your PPP, emergency funds came in to give people enhanced unemployment benefits, which was great. Like at the time, we're like, oh, well, great. Like everyone's getting paid. They're getting unemployment and they're getting an extra $600 a week. And as small businesses, when we finally got that PPP money, we're sitting there and you're looking at your staff that are like family members in a lot of instances, or worked for you for years, and you've sent them home. Your business isn't quite where it's going to be. You have either no dining, no outdoor dining in April and May. And so people, the political class was saying, well, we got 8 weeks of PPP to pay everyone. I'm like, well, if I pay them, they're going to make less than they're going to make on unemployment. And I don't know if I'm going to get shut down again. We just didn't know. So
Right.
We didn't push that. And we were lucky enough that, the Hospitality Association, the National Restaurant Association, and a lot of other lobbyist groups in DC were able to extend the time to use the PPP money, so it made more sense, so the economy can get going. But I think the lesson that we learned, and if you're an employee that got laid off, learned was, well, wait a second, I don't want to go jump back into a job in an industry that might get shut down again, or it might not be as busy as it was. And then it took me so many weeks, and through no fault of anyone, it took you so long to get your unemployment that there's a natural reluctancy from people, and I don't blame them, to not want to jump off of it. And we all thought, let's just get to the end of July. The incentive for the $600 a week that incentivizes people, disincentivizes people to work and incentivizes us to stay home. And I think for good reasons. Like I don't fault anyone for it. I'd had this conversation with a lot of staff members. I didn't want to hurt them economically or financially. What the issue was is Washington hasn't gotten its act together on what to do next. And so our people who are out of work are thinking, well, this benefit's going to come back. And if I go take a job and winter's coming and, you know, there might be a second wave that they keep talking about in the political circles, it kind of makes it really hard to get employees back.
So let's call time out, because you're transitioning to what I think is the dynamic right now. It has been, I'm sure it's all a blur in terms of how the whole thing has gone, but why don't we pause here? We'll come back and we'll talk about, you know, why Bill sent me a message and how common this seems to be in the restaurant and maybe other small business environment. Bill Kitsilis, who owns Angelo's Palace Pizzeria in Cumberland, speaking about business trends right now. Right back on Dan Yorke State of Mind. Please stay with us. And welcome back to My State of Mind. Bill Kitsilis is the owner of Angelo's Palace Pizzeria restaurant in Mendon Road in Cumberland. So I get this text from Bill the other day, and it says, well, I could read it. I should have it handy, but it more or less says, hey, Dan, you know, my place, everybody up Mendon Road, and you name 5 or 6 fine restaurants that we know locally, can't get anybody to work. What's this 10% unemployment all about? And I thought, that's interesting. As the roller coaster has been riding, you know, all around, what is that, you know, what is that dynamic? I think you were starting to weave into it, but if I just asked you for a real-time analysis, what would the analysis be? What is the real problem out there on the streets?
Well, from what I'm experiencing and from when I talk to my local small business owners and restaurateurs, there's just open positions for this new business that's we've built up through the virus. We can't get help. I think there's a lot of reasons at play. I'm not sure what they all are. I have my feelings from what I'm hearing, and we just can't get enough help. I mean, we couldn't open up our outdoor patio for lunch for I think about 4 weeks after we were able to do so, because we just didn't have servers or bartenders to fill those shifts. And even now, we're running shifts with less people than are necessary to have the right level of service. And it's just hard to operate. We've worked harder now to survive than ever before. And I'm fortunate to have business, but even people who aren't as busy are not getting positions filled. It's making it really hard to run your business.
But what do you think is happening? Is it that whole folks are still lingering on unemployment, hoping for more bonus checks? The timeline on that has not yet evaporated. People are afraid from just the interaction as customers with the COVID virus itself. What is it?
I think it's a lot of things. I think what I was hinting at in the earlier segment was the fact that what if there's another shutdown? And if there's another shutdown, I think people are afraid to be kind of caught in the middle there in that crunch period of not getting unemployment right away or heightened unemployment benefits until they're able to, you know, because the industry that they happen to be in, it could be any industry, get shut down because of this, you know, talk about a second wave, which could be real or not real. I don't know. And so I get that uncertainty and that feeling of insecurity. And so people are going to try to do what's best for them and take care of their family. I just don't know, and I've heard talk out there is, you know, maybe a way to kind of align the state's interest to get the economy back online, to align small business owners, and to give kind of security to people that are taking these positions is maybe they're incentivized to go back to work, to at least be in the system. And if they were to lose their job, it's not because of a shutdown through no fault of their own. They're in the kind of the unemployment queue to be able to not miss a check or a pay period.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that's a good idea. I wouldn't know how to implement it. Yeah. But it's just, I'm seeing kind of a counter incentive of how to get the economy back and balance people's everyday needs.
So let me ask you this: are the holes in your payroll? How short? Short answer here. How short are you percentage-wise from the total complement you'd like to have on your payroll?
About 25% at one location.
Now, do you think that gap of 25% is mostly former employees who have not returned, or just the normal cycle always keeps you in a 10 or 20 or 30% need, and when you advertise for employment, it's pretty okay to be able to get them? In other words, what really is the holdback?
In my opinion, I think the holdback is that people, I think people, a couple of things. You got some kids, some people at this time, if you have a transition from the summer students in a lot of places, like the college kids who are home for the summer or before they go away to college, you didn't get that replacement back of kind of, parents, working parents who are looking to pick up part-time jobs because their kids are back in school. So that labor pool for a lot of school districts is not existent right now because they're doing at-home learning. So with kids not going back to school and a parent or another caregiver having to stay home and provide that oversight, you lose that potential group of job pool people. Then I also think there's a group of people who would rather just stay home and collect me. I think there's a small percentage of that. So I think we already had a very tight labor market before this pandemic hit. And a lot of us are like, well, I guess this will open up things. And that just hasn't actualized itself.
Understood. Well, listen, COVID has changed everything, and all the rules are changed. And so, what's down is up, and what's up is down, and sideways, and all those kind of things. So we've learned not to necessarily use yesterday's equation. But I guess my question again is, can you identify people that you would like to have back to work who just won't come?
Couple. I could identify a couple.
Okay, but a couple is not part of the 25. I mean, a couple doesn't do a big dent in your 25%. So because you employ a lot of people, right? So I'm trying to, you're raising the issue with me. You tell me that it's common ground. I believe both of those assertions. But if I'm a legislator, as if they're actually working and worth anything at this point. But if I'm a problem solver, if I'm the administration, if I'm commerce, or if I'm a federal person, I want to know what the acute root is to this solution. And whether it's actually something that government can react to, or whether it's just going to have to roll out. Let's talk about that in our next segment, and to see what the solution is, and actually talk about what you think the near future holds for your business, because it's an important one in this state, and one that we love and hope it's going to survive. Bill Kitsilis from Angelo's in Cumberland will be right back on My State of Mind. Stay with us. With Bill Kitsilis from Angelo's in Cumberland, we only have a couple minutes. Bill, I know these questions are not easy to ask. Believe me, I'm not a prosecutor. You're not a witness. I'm just trying to figure out what the solution is. If I said, all right, what do you need, and give it to me in 15 seconds, what is it? What do you need? What do businesses like yours across the board need, do you think?
Well, I think we need to kind of talk about the fact that Rhode Island's doing well with managing COVID and the number of cases. That I think the message of that we're at a steady place, a safe place, so to speak, with the spread of the virus, and there's not this large imminent threat that everything's going to get shut down again. I think that messaging really makes it hard for people to leave unemployment and come back to work because they're afraid to be caught in that gap. I honestly think, and I've talked to a lot of business owners who think, that if there was something that incentivized people in this new federal package to have people go back to work, to give them that extra security that they're looking for, I think that would help tremendously.
Yeah, that's like you said earlier in the broadcast. Interesting concept. I don't know what the mechanism is for that. Hey, listen, you'll always have your unemployment, so don't worry about it. I mean, I think it'll have to be more rhetorical than it's going to be actual mechanical. But you know what? Who knows? And who knows what they'll get together with Washington. Listen, I'm glad you reached out and let me know, because it's something that I think people ought to be aware of. And even those out there who might be thinking I can't get a job should know right now that there are plenty of small businesses that actually are trying to hire. So that's a good message to have gotten out, I think.
I agree.
Yeah. Bill, thank you. We'll keep in touch on this. Bill Kitsilis.
If you know anyone, send them down.
Yeah, there you go. If you know anyone's looking for a job, send them down to Bill. Final word when we come back on My State of Mind. Stay with us. Up is down and sideways with COVID, that there's a lot of jobs to be filled, and employers who can't fill them is surprising. But then again, nothing should surprise us. If you're looking for a job, check your local restaurant right now. Have a great night. Thanks for tuning in. Good night.